Most global conflicts do not begin with weapons. They begin with materials, quietly, far from headlines, long before anyone realizes what is really at stake. One of those materials is cobalt. Cobalt does not look powerful. It does not fuel cars or light cities. But without it, modern technology slows or stops. Your phone, your laptop, electric vehicles, satellites, advanced weapon systems all depend on cobalt. And most of the world's supply comes from one place, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Congo holds roughly half of the planet's known cobalt reserves and produces around 70% of global supply. That alone makes it strategic. But what truly matters is not ownership, it is control. For most of history, cobalt barely mattered. It was used mainly as a blue pigment in glass and ceramics. It was not even identified as a distinct metal until 1735. That changed with technology. After the Second World War, cobalt found military uses in heat-resistant alloys and high-performance magnets. But the real shift came in the last 15 years. Lithium-ion batteries turned cobalt into a cornerstone of modern life. Electric vehicles pushed demand into overdrive. A single EV battery can contain several kilograms of cobalt, hundreds of times more than a phone battery. And the largest EV market in the world is China. Nearly 60% of global electric vehicle sales happen there. That fact explains what came next. Because owning a resource is not the same as controlling the supply chain. Extraction, processing, component manufacturing, final products. Most countries never move past the first step. China did all four. Today, Chinese firms control roughly 70% of cobalt mining operations in the Congo. They did not arrive suddenly. They moved early, quietly, and systematically. In 2007, Chinese state-owned firms signed a landmark deal to form Sicco Mines, locking in long-term cobalt and copper access. Western companies hesitated. China committed. In 2016, one of the world's largest cobalt mines, 10K Fungurume, was sold to China's CMOC Group. In 2020, CMOC acquired control of Kisanfu, one of the largest untapped cobalt reserves on Earth. But mining was never the real advantage. Processing was. China now refines around 80% of the world's cobalt. That is the choke point. Because raw cobalt is useless without purification and chemical conversion. And that capability takes infrastructure, expertise, and scale. The United States noticed this late. Decades ago, America's strategic stockpile of critical materials was worth tens of billions of dollars. Today, it is a fraction of that. Not a crisis yet, but a vulnerability. Washington is responding. Defense contractors are required to source minerals from allies. Battery manufacturing is being rebuilt. Alternative chemistries are being explored. But these shifts take time. Meanwhile, China dominates battery production. Roughly 3/4 of the world's EV batteries are made there. 6 of the world's top 10 battery firms are Chinese. One company alone, CATL, produces more than 1/3 of global supply. This is not about cutting exports. Leverage does not need to be used to be effective. It only needs to exist. In a future crisis, over Taiwan, technology sanctions, or broader rivalry, cobalt becomes pressure. And pressure shapes behavior long before conflict begins. That is why cobalt is often called the new oil. Not because it fuels engines, but because it fuels power. Now we move to something even more sensitive than factories, the materials that modern militaries cannot function without. If you imagine modern war as tanks, missiles, and aircraft, you are already looking in the wrong place. The most powerful weapon in today's world does not explode. It does not make noise. Most people have never heard of it. It sits quietly inside smartphones, electric vehicles, wind turbines, and the most advanced weapons ever built: rare earth elements. Despite the name, rare earths are not actually rare. They exist across the planet, in Australia, the United States, Africa, and Europe. The problem is not geology. It is processing. Extracting and refining rare earths is technically complex, environmentally destructive, and politically unpopular. Over the past 3 decades, while most countries stepped away from that burden, China leaned in. Today, China controls roughly 2/3 of global rare earth mining and close to 90% of processing capacity. That means even when rare earths are mined outside China, they usually end up being refined inside China. Every modern supply chain passes through this bottleneck. Rare earths are a group of 17 elements with unfamiliar names: neodymium, dysprosium, terbium. But their function is very familiar. They make powerful magnets, small and efficient. They prevent overheating in advanced electronics. They enable miniaturization, precision, and speed. Without them, electric vehicles lose efficiency. Wind turbines stall, data centers struggle, and military stop working. Modern armed forces are not built on steel alone. Jet engines rely on rare earth alloys. Radar systems depend on rare earth magnets. Missile guidance, satellite communications, and precision weapons all require them. Even some of the most advanced US platforms rely, directly or indirectly, on materials that have passed through Chinese processing facilities. That creates a strategic contradiction. The United States designs the world's most sophisticated weapons, yet depends on its primary strategic rival for the materials that make them possible. That is not a theoretical weakness. It is a pressure point. China did not stumble into this position. Since the early 2000s, Beijing subsidized rare earth mining and refining, tolerated environmental damage others would not accept, and undercut global competitors on price. Western processors shut down. Chinese capacity expanded. More recently, China has refined its approach. Instead of outright bans, it introduced licensing requirements, reporting obligations and controls on specific processing technologies and magnets. These are not blunt instruments. They are switches. History shows how effective they can be. In 2010, during a diplomatic dispute, China restricted rare earth exports to Japan. Prices spiked almost overnight. Supply chains froze. Tokyo scrambled for alternatives. The lesson Beijing took was simple. You do not need to cut everything off. You only need uncertainty. That uncertainty is what alarms Washington. In a serious confrontation over Taiwan, technology sanctions, or escalation elsewhere, China would not need to announce an embargo. Approvals could slow. Licenses could be delayed. Sensitive end uses could face extra scrutiny. Factories would not shut down immediately. They would hesitate. And hesitation is lethal in modern warfare. The United States is trying to respond. Processing capacity is being rebuilt. Strategic stockpiles are being expanded. Partnerships with Australia, Canada, and Japan are growing. But this is a long road. Building rare earth processing takes years. Environmental approvals alone can take a decade. China did not build its dominance quickly, and it will not be undone quickly either. The real danger here is not shortage. It is escalation. Once supply chains become weapons, economics turns into deterrence. Trade becomes security policy, and every commercial decision becomes political. Global systems do not break with explosions, they fracture with paperwork. In the next episode, we move from materials to money, and why China has been quietly accumulating gold, reducing its exposure to the dollar, and preparing for a world where financial systems themselves become tools.